Alright, so today we're going to make scones. For this, I'm making it gluten-free because I cannot have gluten. However, you can make this with regular flour. I've got a mix of flours that I'm going to use for gluten-free, but all-purpose flour works great. So to start, in your food processor, if you have one, if you don't, you can just use a large bowl and just put your flour in there and your butter and kind of rub them together until you get like sand. But in our food processor, we're going to start with my brown rice flour. I've weighed all these ingredients out already. The amounts will be down in the recipe. Tapioca starch, and this is xanthan gum. It acts like gluten, but it's not gluten. And then we're going to put in some salt and sugar. This is about a quarter cup of sugar, which sounds like a lot, but they're a little bit of a sweet scone. This is our leavening agent. We've got baking powder and baking soda in here. And then our butter. So this is a whole stick of butter or half a cup of butter. Get that in there. And then we're just going to give it a blitz. And you just want all the big chunks of butter to be gone. Have kind of this like sandy consistency. Kind of hold it and it sticks together just a little bit. So from here, we're going to add our lime zest. If you don't have like a microplane or a zester, you can just use like a box grater, like a small side of a box grater, or you can just peel it off with a potato peeler and chop it up. Get that in there. And this is really going to give it nice fragrance. We're going to blitz it in there now just to get it really mixed in, give the flour like a little bit of that lime scent. Now, what I like to do is to mix the wet and the dry separately in a bowl. You can just put it right in the food processor, but I find that it tends to get a little bit of a mess, and there's not as much control. So the eggs, we're going to beat these up just a little bit. Dump those in. I know, bright yellow. Now I have buttermilk here. If you don't have buttermilk, when I made this the other day, I didn't either. You can just use some milk and then like a tablespoon or a teaspoon of vinegar, and it'll kind of curdle a little bit, give that buttermilk look, and also kind of give you that little bit of sourness. And then we're just going to take our fork and just kind of mix these together. It'll quickly come together. Before you mix it all the way, we're going to mix in our cherries. And it should start to come together, just kind of big kind of lumps. Once it's together, we can get in here with our hands. I like to remove my rings. You don't have to. Do it Paula Deen style. She totally just goes to town. You don't want to overwork it too much, so you really just want to do this till it comes together. And then just going to press it out a little bit until we get kind of a circle. Doesn't have to be perfect. These are scones for you to have with your tea or coffee. I like tea. I know some of you cannot live without your coffee. That is entirely up to you. So, just press it out a little bit. And then take our bench scraper, or you can just use a knife, and we're just going to cut it into 8 pieces. If you pull out a little cherry there, just stick it back in there somewhere. It'll be fine. And then we're just going to spread them out. So, beautiful little scones. And there's always going to be some stuck to the parchment. It's fine. It's fine. No need to freak out. Just move them about, get them out onto your pan. And those little bits that are kind of stuck, not a big deal. You can just leave them there. They'll bake off, and this whole piece of parchment is just going to go in the garbage anyway. So I'm going to wash up and come back in just a second with a pastry brush with some milk that we're just going to brush on top. Brushing the milk on top is optional. I find that it gives you a little bit of extra browning, but again, totally optional. Also, if you're going to sprinkle a little bit of sugar on top, this helps it stick. Or we're going to do a water icing at the end that just gives a little bit of extra sweetness. And what you could do from here, if you really want to make sure that they're flaky and you feel like, you know, your dough is really super soft, you can stick it back in the fridge. I don't really feel like it's necessary. We barely worked it just to bring it together. And that is it. Those are your scones. These are going to go in the oven for about half an hour, 15 minutes. And then they'll puff up, be super golden and delicious looking, and then we'll let them cool and put a water icing on. So I'll be right back. Alright, so we're going to make a little bit of a water icing. It's called water icing because it's really just sugar and water. We're going to use our lime juice just to add a little bit of extra deliciousness into that. So I've got about 75 grams of sugar here, confectioner sugar, and the juice of 1 lime, and you just mix them together. This will make a nice sort of glaze for the top. Juice isn't enough. You can just add a couple extra drops of water just until you've got the consistency that you want. So it should be fairly opaque, but it should be easily mixable. So now from here, you can put it in a pastry bag. If you don't have a pastry bag, you can just use a Ziploc bag and just cut off the corner a little bit and use that. Or you can just use your fork. Scones now cooled mostly. I like a little bit of a warm scone. And the difference is that a warm scone will absorb a little bit of your frosting, which is fine. The frosting is really just there for sweetness and some extra flavor. So we're just going to cut just the tip off just a little bit. We just want a tiny little hole for our frosting, and we're just going to squeeze that over just like that. Make it look pretty and fancy, and or don't. Some people just like their scones with butter. I mean, we already put a lot of butter in there, but what's a little more butter gonna hurt? Except your waistline, am I right? And there you go. Cherry lime scones, made by you, and it only took like 20 minutes, at the most. I mean, that'll get you through your first cup of coffee, right? Look how pretty they are. And so, so delicious. Enjoy your day.